before training is they coach lenders and realtors, and I found before I left this morning something from December of last year, and it was a conversation from one of their virtual events, and it was talking about getting your offer accepted. So I have a link to that. You can stream it. It's a little nifty. It's a bit.ly short thing. I downloaded it and uploaded it to Dropbox, so you can listen to it. But I think it's really good. It's a lender and a realtor talking, but the realtor is actually out of Nashville and talking about what they've done in their market, and it's kind of interesting. He said, last year, one of the things that struck me was last year. This is probably would have been October or so. He said they missed 25 cash offers on deals, and he said we're scratching our head. We're going over 20,000 over asking. We're different things like that. We're rolling off contingencies. And what was interesting, he started to call the listing agents and said, "Well, what am I missing?" And the theme they got was, you're not addressing the emotional situation that the sellers are in, which I thought was kind of interesting. And so they're taking other people's offers that have more interesting buyers, or it's not, once you're so far over the asking price, the comment was that they're all good offers. So you're picking ones that hit an emotional pain point with the sellers. Now, there's things about the real estate laws that I don't know, so you got to be careful. But there's some things about that I thought was interesting, and I'm about halfway through that discussion, and I don't have a lot of the answers yet. But I want to make that available to you guys. So, wanted to introduce Paul. Most of you had met Paul. Paul is he's a licensed loan originator. He happens to be my son. He's a junior at ETSU studying economics and business. And so he's going to make a run at the mortgage business, and so he's been doing my refinances for the last year. So we haven't turned him loose on purchases
unofficially.
Yet. Unofficially, yeah.
I haven't been.
Yeah, he hasn't been licensed the whole time. So unofficially, he's been helping. Put that way. But he's rightly so concerned about his. What people might, with him being young in the business. And I said, look, there's nobody. He has the full faith and credit of the entire office behind him. So if you ever see anything with his pre-qualification on it, we're going to make it happen. So, but anyway, he's going to be working on his own book of business. But I figured that the more he was around, he could hear us talk about different things, and there may be opportunities for him to help and just learn some things. So one of the things I wanted to kind of brainstorm, what are the top 10 things that you are doing or should do, or might be some ideas that we could do to help us in these situations, multiple offer situations. So, I think that Matt, you're doing coaching, right? I mean, everybody's got the access to Tim, right? And I'm sure he's talked about it himself, but. What are some of the big things that you guys are doing in multiple offer situations?
Making the offer as lean as possible.
Right there.
So don't attach a bunch of contingencies to it. Don't
Okay.
say, we're making our inspection period. Longest I've done in a while is 10 days, 12 days. Don't ask for closing costs, because if it does go up high, then you got to reduce for seller pays.
Yeah.
And so minimize damage. I call and ask what the seller needs. Some agents are dumb and don't pick up their phone and want to talk, so I'll send them a text like, "Hey, I sent in the offer. Is there anything that the seller would need? Flexible closing date? Do they need, a certain type of number? Or what's going on with them? Anything I can do to make it work?" We're serious about it. So sometimes we're like, "Well, they want as much money as possible." Like, well, what do they need? Well, they need to be out in 2 weeks. Okay, so what if we try to see if we can do that. Because I've lost cash before to people who are going so high on financing.
Right.
So it's really just what the seller's needing, and if the agent is a good agent and is able to open up some communication, they can line there and work together.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, you covered a lot of things that when I think about what what are the coaching that I get from a lending standpoint, what we can do, but then I'm like, well, when you start to, you get the pressure, you're gonna talk about this topic, it's like, okay, what is this person doing, what is this person doing, what does the coaching do, what does my coach do? What do they do in Salt Lake City, what do they do in Nashville, and so I'm trying to get that information so I can throw up some nuggets, but, you know, one of the things that, so some of the ideas that I had seen was a higher earnest money deposit, right? Is that something, what is that? You know, you guys are both listening and taking care of representing buyers as well. So I guess you have both sides of that, right? So when when they have a higher earnest money deposit, what does that make you think? When, you know, if it's a $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 earnest money, what do you think is the lister?
They're gonna have more buying power. They're not somebody that's coming there 100%, and if something just barely takes their credit and they're out of the loan, so they're able to chunk some money down a little more stable.
Okay, and they're probably not gonna walk away from that earnest money, right? So they're gonna, I mean, there's so many ways, I guess, that we allow it these days. Okay, so that was one of my higher earnest money deposit. You know, and I think one of the keys was when, you know, talking to the seller's agent to find out what's necessary, because one of the things was we'll offer a 1 month free occupancy. Now, I don't necessarily like that because, you know, they're living in a house that they don't own, and they could beat it up or do different things like that. But in terms of, you know, if somebody is trying to, you know, they want to sell it so that they can buy something else, and they want to have a more of a transition time. You know, especially if they're borrowing money, the first payment's not going to be due for 30 days or 45 days, you know, anyway. So I think there's some caveats with that in terms of, you know, who's covering the insurance. If the buyer is is borrowing money, they have said that they're going to use this house as their primary residence, so they have to move in with a certain amount of time. It's usually 30 to 45 days. So you can't say, well, I'll give you 90 days, because that starts to mess with sometimes, you're buying investment property at that point. So those are some things to think about. So is that something, what do you think about that? What is that, I mean, from a seller standpoint, is there ever a reason why that would be a good thing, or something that you would maybe offer?
I think earnest money is real.
Sorry?
I think if people are educated on earnest money, I don't really think that matters.
Oh, okay.
There was a
Me personally, 'cause I mean, anybody that's got a good agent that's working with them is gonna advise a buyer on how to get out of an offer and keep their earnest money.
Yeah, okay,
You know, unless they make it like a special stipulation, like it's non-refundable.
okay.
That can be a-
Yeah. You know, I did a loan in a different state. Where was it? I think it was North Carolina.
North Carolina, you have to put a deposit down just to put in an offer.
Yeah, there was,
You have good faith money and then earnest money.
yeah, I was like, wait, what are these two earnest money things? So I thought that was interesting. So it's almost, you know, I guess you could put a stipulation where you said you could say $2,000 in good faith money. You could make your own stipulations, I guess, and say, well, if we don't take it, then you get to keep $2,000. You know, I don't know. I mean, people are desperate these days. So, I don't know if you've got it. I mean, if you're buying a $600,000 house, what's $2,000? I mean, if you're, you know,
If you're Lincoln Walters, what's $2,000?
what's that?
I said, if you're Lincoln Walters, what's $2,000?
All right, now let's be nice. All right, so tell me, educate me about an escalation clause. So are you seeing more and more of those, or is it common around you these days?
That's what we like to use.
Oh, okay. So tell me how that works, because I'm a little, I know what it is, but I don't know exactly how it works.
You basically just give them a purchase price, and then special stipulations, tell them you'll go up to a certain amount over that purchase price, to beat out other offers that come through, the verbiage that's in it, they have to prove that there's other offers, and they can't just jack the price up on you.
Okay.
Of course, you set a cap on it.
Okay.
Mine, I didn't put a cap. We would have lost it 3 ways if we
Or you can do it, Crystal, not put a cap,
And it escalates 200.
and escalate it $205,000 over.
Crazy.
I'm saying, don't put a
One.
cap.
Okay.
Put you over 2 and 5.
Wow.
Over.
So that's instead of putting in a
Oh,
completely
right.
separate offer?
Yeah, you just attach it.
So they already,
So it
as soon
automatically
as the,
goes 1,000 or 2,000 higher than whatever the next highest offer is.
oh wow,
We usually write it where like, if we're at 200,000 and somebody comes in at 201, we'll beat it by like $500. Whatever the best offer is.
Sounds like too big.
To a
There
certain-
used to be something like you put in a bid and it would automatically.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, okay.
What I did was I added a line that said something like they would have to counter us back, so that way with the no cap, if it was excessive, they would counter and reject it.
Luckily, it wasn't excessive.
It was cash too, right? It was cash, right?
Leave her alone. That's how it works.
Wow, okay, all right. So, and you guys are doing more and more of that? Is that a,
Yeah,
Pretty common.
it wasn't super common a while ago. I had to like call and tell agents like, hey, I have this, and they're like, well, what is this? I've never seen this before. Like old
Okay.
agents, young agents, and I'm like, explain it like that. We're coming in here. She goes, well, we have this offer. I said, then I beat it by 2,000. She goes, really? And I was like, that's what it says. So she's like, okay, well, you win.
okay, interesting, okay. How about, waiving appraisal continues?
That's Joey's bread and butter.
Is that right?
Well, Joey goes in and just says, for informational purposes only. So we're not gonna ask you for anything.
No, he's saying appraisal, not
Appraisal,
inspection.
an inspection letter, but appraisal,
Oh, no, I haven't had to go for that appraisal.
So one of the things that, one of the things from my standpoint, if somebody's got 20% down or more that they can put down and they're well qualified, one of the things that we could do is we could, cause, if they're going over the asking price, and let's say they go over $20,000 over asking, but at appraise it comes in $10,000 low. Well, I mean, that's gonna kill the deal. Well, if they've got X, I mean, there's a couple different ways to do this. Is, clearly if they're putting 50% down, then it's easy to just cover that. They're gonna pay for that out of their own pocket. So it really doesn't make a lot of difference. But when somebody's putting 20% down and, we need to use some of their cash, we're talking about well-qualified people, the mortgage insurance is actually quite inexpensive for somebody to put, instead of 20% down, to put 15, or to put 10, or to put 5. And so those are some options that frees up some of the cash that they can use it to add it to it. So, I don't know if you could put a stipulation that I mean, if you need to, I would think if you're representing your buyer and they're going 20,000 over and you're not really sure that it's gonna, I mean, you would have a gut feeling, I guess, that maybe it might be 5,000 high, it may not come in, but, they would have the ability to, I guess you could put something that says if it's, waive the appraisal, I don't know. I'm trying to think of ways to make it,
You did that before. Is it like, if it doesn't appraise, buyer is willing to put X amount of dollars?
Got it.
So go ahead
Okay.
and cover the event it doesn't appraise.
yeah, okay.
They'll pay like 5,000 or 7,000 over whatever the price is if it doesn't appraise.
Okay, so that would be something you would need to talk to the lender to find out, do they have the capacity to do that? So, we can run those scenarios for you, I guess what I'm saying. So, okay, cool. Another comment I saw was avoid asking for personal property, just keep it simple, make it as clean as possible, we've already said that, no seller paid closing costs, and that's the hardest thing for me as a lender. These people come in, they wanna do something, they don't have any money, a year and a half ago, we can do a THDA, you got, $300 in the bank, we can make that happen. And I don't know what to tell people, because I'm like, technically you're qualified to buy, I can pre-qualify you, but you're never gonna get an offer, because you're trying to buy at 120 and you need 5,000 closing costs. You're just, I try to be as frank with them as I can, but, they're excited, they come to you and say, well, hey, I wanna make an offer on this place, and that there's no way they're gonna get this, right? So I don't know, do you have any advice for me when I'm talking to them? I try to soften them up and tell them that, you need to talk to Matt, or you need to talk to whatever, but this could be really tough, this market, you need to save up some money, so,
I think essentially, yeah, that's it. But then we have the follow-up conversation.
yeah.
It's gonna be tough. They're hearing it from you and from us.
Yeah.
So we're not just like,
Yeah, and that's part of, I feel like part of my job is to educate educate them about the market as much as I can. And my standard line is now, Lincoln and I have worked together for a long time. I have an opinion, like everybody has a nose, everybody has an opinion. I have an opinion about the market, but if Lincoln says something different about the market than I do, listen to Lincoln, because he's the expert. Now, when it comes to the lending side, I'm gonna be the expert, but listen to Lincoln. But this is what I know. This is what I know is that, multiple offers, going over asking, it's a tough market, and so one of the things I've tried to do is if somebody has enough money, like they've saved enough money to put 3.5% down on an FHA loan, what I'll do is I'll say, let's try to put you in maybe 100% financing. You've got that extra money to use for your closing costs. And so I'm trying to look at creative ways to do that so that they can still, if they don't have any money, it's just so tough. It's like, can you sell a kidney? Or, I don't really know. And it's just so difficult. How many kids you have times 1,400, something like that. I mean, you're looking for those things. But I'm trying to run interference for you all when I pre-qualify people, and those are the ones that break my heart. It's like they're so excited. Yes, they're qualified, but the only thing I can know to do is, you're qualified for 120. Start shopping in the 95 range, and then you can go up to that point. And I think that you hit it first off, Matt, was discover the seller's motivation to help structure your offer. I think that makes so much sense. And I think that's this coach in Nashville, that's one of the things he was talking about. He was like, we're going way over asking cash, no contingencies. Why are these people not accepting our offers? And they, like any kind of sales, I don't know what you need. Hello there.
Thanks, buddy.
So it's like, I remember when I was a young salesman, I remember going in, I sold industrial equipment to process plants and things like that. And I had my little satchel, and I'd go in and I'd talk to this purchasing manager, and I would take, I wouldn't even ask him what he needed. I would take my little satchel of toys and I would dump them out, not literally, but I'd dump them out on the desk and say, is there anything there that you'd like to have? He was like, no, I'm good. But what I started to do then, as I learned a little bit more, it was like, I would say, I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox. So let me ask you a few questions, because I don't know if you need any of the stuff that I got in my toolbox, right? I don't know if you like chocolate or hard candy or licorice. I got all kinds of candy in here, but I need to know what you like. What do you need? What are your challenges? So, I think I could see where you would forget that, you're always selling. You're selling to get the listing. You're always selling to get the buyer, but you're also selling to the agent, the listing agent. So understanding those things is going to be powerful. Shortening the due diligence periods, those are all things that you guys have already talked about. So I was going to talk about some of the things that, give me some feedback on, whether us or other lenders that you work with, is there anything that they're doing that you're seeing that is helping other lenders, get your listings, or maybe they've worked with you, they slipped by me and they're working with you all. That happens. Is there anything? Are they doing anything special that I could learn from? Crickets?
I have felt the appraisal process been speeding up lately.
Oh yeah. The turn times on appraisals, turn times on our underwriting is much better. There's a lot of good things there. So I'm feeling much better about that. So anything that you guys that are seeing that other lenders are doing, are they helping, or are they just kind of say, go do it? Okay.
I haven't seen anybody. I know like a while ago people were talking about like, oh, we get them like pre-underwritten,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as you're ready to go, we can close in like 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a lot of that yet,
Mhm.
as of now. I think it's just because everybody's so busy,
Mhm.
not rushing to that point.
Yeah.
But that was helpful like a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that some things I do, some things I don't do consistently, and some things I'd like to do. So let me go over some of those with you. So one of the big things is just picking up the phone, calling the listing agent. Hey, I've pre-qualified these people. They're in great shape. I know most of the agents in the market. I mean, there's a lot of new ones, but some of the ones that I don't, just pick up the phone and call them. Say, is there anything, you're going to be getting an offer from, Fred Wilma and, you know, they're great, you know, they're rock stars. Right, Fred won't get it. So, you know, making that call, you know, one of the things that I was listening to somebody talking about, you know, text the listing agent, you know, here's a link to all of our 5-star reviews, right? You know, I don't know, I think a phone call is appropriate in that case, just to say, you know, and I've done this on some people, you know, you're gonna be getting an offer. Actually, it was a couple of Sundays ago. I got a text from an agent that I worked with for years and said, hey, I'm looking at some offers. I've got, your people are here. Can they close a little earlier? And they asked me, are they good, strong buyers? So I texted them back. It was probably 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, and I said, yeah, they're in great shape. They had come out of a different, they had been fully underwritten because we'd worked, they came out of a deal because of home inspection. And so they were very well qualified. And so we went back and forth over the course of 15 minutes, and they said, you know, 20 minutes later I get a text that says, your people got it, you know, get to work. I said, okay, Monday I'll get to work. So the ability to, you know, knowing the other agents and, you know, being able to take care of them and be responsive and reach out proactively. Okay. So if there's anybody that we've got pre-qualified, you know, I don't know all the offers that you're making. So, you know, it could be that, you know, if it is a multiple offer situation, probably all of them are, you know, call me up and say, hey, you know, Fred Wilmer making an offer on this place. Do you know this agent? I'll pick up the phone and make a phone call. Yeah, I could do a BombBomb video so that they could forward that on to the seller and say, you know, these guys are in great shape. You know, please forward this on to the seller. That these folks are, you know, tell what's going on. Now I would ask the borrowers if it's okay to share certain information. Like, I'm not going to share super personal information, but if they got an 805 credit score and they've been on their job for the last 10 years, you know, I could share that to make them feel more comfortable. This is a slam dunk. So if you ever need that, if that's a tool that would help, you know, I'd be glad to do that. You know, so let's see what else.
Do we have to pay you a referral fee for that?
I just want the deal. I just want the deal. If we get, that's all I care about. So let's see. You know, one of the things that I think that is, and I tell borrowers this all the time when they come in. You know, I try to tell them, you know, my job is I want to work with the agent that referred you to me. We work together as a team. So first of all, you know, I have a reputation in the market. So when somebody sees my pre-qualification letter, it's going to be different than they get a Rocket Mortgage pre-qualification. Right? So I said, I'm probably not going to get you 10 grand based on my reputation, but you know, when everybody's over, you know, if you're within a couple $1,000 and they're looking at these different pre-qualifications and they see somebody that they trust, the agent should be looking out for the seller and saying, you know, how our offer doesn't help if it doesn't close. Like if you have the confidence to say, I mean, you know, Mr. Seller, these are all great offers. I mean, you know, this is more than you ever dreamed that you're going to get out of your house. We need to pick one that's going to have the least amount of hassles, that's going to close. And so I think that by reaching out to them and, you know, making sure that seller's agent knows that we've put them through the mill and we're confident there, and they should be able to pass that through. Let's see. Do you guys do any like buyer love letters? Are you allowed to do those?
I've actually won a couple.
You have? Okay.
I did win a couple, but then when I went to the court class on Zoom, hearing my
Oh, they
friend
still
out.
went to court.
Really?
Like fair housing act and all, like,
Really?
yeah.
She said not to do it.
She said not to do it, and I trust her.
Yeah. Well, that's frustrating because, you know, it isn't.
Because I did win several doing
Yeah,
that, so,
yeah.
yeah.
You wrote them though.
You can't make stuff up. That's the problem. You know, you're getting clip art. These kids, like we got 16 kids, and they're all, you know, they want this house. And they weren't real kids. You know.
They weren't real kids.
So that really is a. I was wondering about that because it's, you know, when I started doing some research, it was like that was a big thing, is to have them write that letter. You know, tell the truth, write that letter. And I just saw one the other day. It was like this guy wrote a letter. He was a single dad and he wanted this house, and And the sellers wrote back a note that said, we wanted you to have that because of this and that and the other. And so, it's tough because it's sales, people think that sales is, a logical, it's an emotional event, and people make decisions, they use logic to support their emotional decision. And it's, they figure out a way to justify it when they wanna do it, and that's frustrating that you're not supposed to do that. Surely,
I've heard of a lot of people doing that.
yeah.
I mean, they
yeah.
do, but she said,
Yeah.
she said that's one of the things that, that they've been like looking at is like maybe not to do that.
Really?
Kind of shaky ground.
Well, it would just get Jody in trouble, right? He's broke.
Yeah, not you, Melinda.
Yeah, yeah. Just,
Joe's license.
And Joey's not here right now to say otherwise.
I think we should do it. That's good feedback, because I don't really know. I just know what if I didn't have those constraints, what I would be doing. Let me think.
He's had a good time making money while.
Matt, one of the things that you mentioned about doing those TBD underwrites, I'm starting to do those on certain ones, and like, pardon me?
The pyramid.
Well, I'm stepping into that. So what he's talking about is a pre-approval guarantee that I had rolled out about a year and a half ago, and then the world changed, and I said I don't want to have that exposure. But the first step in that is doing pre-qualification, and so what that means is, right now when somebody comes to me, I pre-qualify them based on verbally what they've told me and a few documents that they've given me. The next step is to do a to be determined property and get a full underwrite, putting them through underwrite. Like Saudi Sam, right? We've got one of Matt's clients that is he lives and works in Saudi Arabia, and there's a language barrier. He speaks English.
They also call about Matt's car warranty.
So I'm like, I want to make sure. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that he's a real buyer. Now he's on paper, or as I talk to him, he's very strong. No debt, good credit scores. He's got plenty of money.
He's
But
also fake.
but I'm trying to make sure that he is the real deal. So we're having to go get a verification of employment because his pay stubs don't look like our pay stubs. Right? And they have English and whatever Saudi Arabian language. Arabic, yes, there you go. That's much more appropriate. But we're going through and making sure we've actually put him through a full to be determined underwrite, so that we know when we pull the trigger, he's ready to go. And that's, I think we're right there. So I'll be getting that to you. But we're going to be doing more and more of those. We've got, and so the idea is that we'll be providing a pre-approval, so I can say that, even if the seller isn't really excited about closing in 2 weeks, because they got stuff to do. I mean, there may be times when somebody needs to be out 2 weeks. Maybe a deal fell through, and now they're stuck because they need to do something quick. And maybe that's a reason that's exciting. So,
I got a question.
yeah.
Future question. And just more of an opinion, more so than like a stats question.
Yeah.
I was watching videos this day, and obviously, like interest rates are going to go up, yada yada.
Mhm.
But the way it balances out, with the home prices being high and interest rates being low right now, it kind of balances itself out. But what happens when, as rates go up, and now home prices dip? What about people that are buying homes now and they go to resell in 2 or 3 years and the market's down? What do you think? Is there a way to
Real estate never goes down.
offset?
Real estate never goes down. Yeah, property values never go down. I started out in the business in 2011, and so it was a different world then. I even thought about that when my own daughter bought about 2 years ago, because we were doing 100% financing. When you're doing 100% financing, you start out generally a little bit upside down. Like you're borrowing 101%, 102%, or depending on the type of loan. And so like, my advice to everybody was that if you're gonna sell in 2 years, you may not be in a position to be able to sell. So my thought for my own daughter was, if you're gonna buy it, and then you're gonna need to plan to hold it for a few years. Now, what had happened in her case is that the market went crazy. I refinanced her the next year, and she was about $40,000 more than what she had paid for it. most concerned about is the people doing 100% financing, because they're already slightly upside down. Now, it really depends on the long term. Like people that were buying in 2008, if they got scared and they are afraid and they were selling, they were way upside down. But if you need a place to live and you're gonna live there anyway, they finally came back and roared past where they were. It took a little while.
I guess I'm like a doom and gloom type person. Like I see like foreclosures happening.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know. I just look at. I'm a pessimist.
I just think one big difference between 2008 and now is a lot of these are mostly fixed rate rather than adjustable rate mortgages. So if you've got, I mean, like you said, if you can still make the payments, you still got a house.
Right.
Yeah, there's not a lot of escalation. And have you all ever watched The Big Short? Have you watched The Big Short, the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, if you haven't, it's I'm sure there are rude spots in it, like all movies, but they take something technical, which is the mortgage meltdown in 2008, and it's pretty interesting. I think it gives you an insight of what was going on. There was a lot of no income, no asset loans. There was people doing stuff.
But
Ninja loans, no income, no job. Ninja, N-I-N-J. So there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. And so if you think about where we were then compared to what we are now, at least at the time they closed, everybody has been fully vetted. I mean, there were times when, it's like, well, how much, what's your occupation? Well, that occupation should make about $75,000. So I'll write that in there. And you didn't, we were talking about, do you have any assets? Yeah, I got all kinds of assets. Well, we didn't qualify with assets. We didn't qualify with the income. We're just writing stuff down, sending that application through. Yeah, we'll do that. 100% financing, got an 80-20, and then you've got deals that are interest only, or they're adjustable rate. People just, they're like, I can always refinance. Values are always going up, but they took care of a lot of. I have never done an adjustable rate in the 10 years I've been in the business. Never done an adjustable rate. I've never done. We do 100% financing, but generally speaking, like VA loans are 100% financing. 100% financing is going to be generally higher risk. The VA 100% financing loans are some of the best performing loans in anybody's portfolio. And you're dealing with people's primary residences. If you think back about The Big Short, you're talking about these people that had 4 or 5 houses that they had bought. They did one in the dog's name, they did one in this one's name, and they're just leverage. And so most people, when it comes to their primary residence, they fight to keep the primary residence, but it's those other properties that they've bought and leveraged that I'll let those go. And I think the fundamentals are different right now than they were. Now, it doesn't mean that there's going to be challenges, but so we'll get there. So, is anything else that I've missed? Do you think that what could I do or we do from a lending standpoint differently than we're doing now? Thank you, Misty, for doing all the work. See you, girl.
Bye.
So, is there anything that we could do as a lender to help make your job easier, or help you get some of these? I mean, would it help for me to make the call to the listing agent, say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith they're in great shape. Do you need anything? They're well qualified. They've been put them through the grinder. They know the deal.
I don't see how that could ever hurt.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. But the challenge is that sometimes things happen so quick. So you need to feel comfortable in reaching out and saying, hey, can you call? Do you know? Again, I probably know the listing agent, but there's a lot of new ones out there. But for me, I think if it helps, let's do it. It always helps me because it's a reason to talk to another realtor. So they may, it may be helpful. Maybe that are there any issues, anything that I could, it might be an opportunity for me to ask some probing questions and give you some feedback. So I'm more than happy to do that. Let me just say that. And I think that I would like to get to the point where I can do those pre-approvals that are those to be determined underwrites, and I want to roll out my closing guarantee that I had rolled out last year, but I want to get my systems in place better so that we can, the way I set it up was a $6,000 closing guarantee. So if I screwed up and it didn't close because of something I did, then I was paying the seller and the buyer, money. And that's a pretty good chunk of money. And so the intent was, we wanted to get somebody's attention, to say, I really have done the work, and I feel very confident in this, and if you're comparing my offer or my pre-qualified buyer to this Rocket Mortgage piece of paper, then, we're not even in the same universe at that point, so.
And was that closing in general, or was that by a certain date?
Well, I've played with different things, and I decided it could be the things that I can't control are the appraisal, how quickly that gets done, and all those different things. So I felt like if I just did a closing guarantee, right, as opposed to closing in, 15-day guarantee. Now, there may be a time and place for that for us to do, but I felt like that I was putting my money where my mouth was to say, this will close. So, anyway, anything else? I'm hungry. I want to get a sandwich. You guys are making me. Thank you for letting me come.
Thank you, Tim.